Hi, this is Peter Propp, and welcome to Stories Behind the Science. Today we're talking with Aman Kant from InveniAI. Aman, why don't you give us your title and tell us a little bit about the company?
Sure. Thank you, Peter. My name is Aman Kant. I head up the business development organization for InveniAI, and we're essentially a technology company that's leveraging artificial intelligence and machine learning for drug discovery. We've been around for almost about 15 years now. We work with almost over about 150 global clients in helping with their portfolio decisions, as well as also spun out our own drug company, which is now a public entity, trading by the name of BioCT Therapeutics. So it's a pleasure making your acquaintance today.
Great to meet you too. So tell us about your journey. I'd love to hear about where you grew up and how you ended up over here, et cetera. So why don't you take us through that just a little bit?
Sure. So just for a background, I actually was born and brought up and did my education in India. And I've actually recently moved to Connecticut. It's only been about, I would say, a decade or so. Really, if I go back to my school and the experience that led me to my career path here, is that especially in school, my real passion was in theater and in dramatics. And I actually wanted to pursue a career in theater or acting. But as they say that your destination is not always your destiny, I ended up choosing, biology as my majors for high school. And, with that path, I only had like two options really. One was to get into the traditional medicine as a physician, or second was to really choose a career of research. And I chose the latter in terms of research. And I'll come to why I actually chose research, but because of that, I ended up pursuing my engineering in biotechnology. Again, very quickly within the first year of my engineering, I kind of realized that I couldn't envision myself as a bench scientist, kind of working in the labs, doing wet lab experiments. So kind of had to quickly pivot in terms of what my real interests were. And what I realized in that journey was that I really liked interpreting the output of the experiments, dissecting the data, and then really presenting the data very clearly. So my fascination for data analytics kind of started back in my college days. And to give you a real example, when most of my batchmates, actually 99.9% of my batchmates, were focused on doing experiments, validating biology or validating targets, writing papers, sequencing. My final year thesis was essentially to create a data-driven algorithm, a screening algorithm, to identify, population patients which are at a high risk of developing diabetes type 2. Because there are invasive therapies which are expensive. So I wanted to create a non-invasive screening algorithm. And obviously that entailed that I had to look at a lot of data, patient-derived data, which I had to go through the IRB approval in getting access to some of those patient data. So I was kind of unique in the sense that that was my extent and fascination for data analytics. And so if I look at that journey of my experience in terms of what I do today in business development and alliance management, I think I can probably outline two main areas of strength. One is, which may not seem, distantly related to what I do, but it's really my experience of dramatics and theater. And I tell you why, because the art of storytelling is actually so important when it comes to, business development and conceptualizing some of the transactions and deals. It's a very underrated skill set, but I think it's a very, very important skill set, in your armamentarium, if you will. And so that was one quality I think that's really helped me in my current function. The second, I would say, is in terms of my appreciation and understanding of data analytics, because even what we do today here is we are doing data analytics, but it's just the component of technology that helps us do it. And that makes it very easy for me to articulate that value and really communicate that value that we bring on the table for some of these deals that we do.
Great.
Those are kind of the two key strengths points I would say that have helped me in my career path.
Great. So tell me about I know the university and high school system in India is very different than what it is here. You said you were a biology major in high school. That's not we first of all I don't think we have majors in high schools in the U.S. as far as I know. So I know that in other parts of the world, choosing a specialty early is something that happens. But then talk about that and talk about your university, JP. Where's that located?
So coming back to the majors, I think when in high school there are basically three options you can take. One is you can take either math, so you have the option of going into engineering and several other fields. The second is the option to take biology, so that opens up all the medicine and the research side. And then there are some individuals who are extremely brilliant to take both, but I think they're more confused or trying to keep all the options open. But really, at that point, you have to make a career choice as to which paths you really want to take.
So it's only math or biology?
Yeah.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, everything else is still there, but math and biology are the two main branches in high school that you have to make a decision on. So I chose biology as an area to for my majors. The university where I did my engineering is in Delhi, which is the capital of India.
Sure.
It's actually a Delhi NCR region, so there are a couple of towns adjacent to Delhi. So I did this from a university called JP Institute of Information Technology. One unique and fascinating element of what I've seen with my life is that I've been kind of the first in every batch that I've been. So when I did my high school, I actually was the first batch in that school for high school. So until then, there wasn't high school. It was only until grade 10th.
Ah.
Then when I went into my engineering, it was the first year of starting biotechnology as a course there in that university.
Uh-huh.
And then when I joined my company, the first company that I'm with was a startup. They had just opened, and I was part of the first 5 employees that joined the organization.
And that
so
was,
there's something with the number first, associated with me and my experience.
You've been breaking new ground at every step of the way. That's great.
Absolutely.
And so that first company was Credes?
Yes. That was something, another fascinating story of my friends and I, in college. I mean, we had some spare time to kill. And again, we were always fascinated by the technology disruption that was happening. And at that time, the whole GPS, wasn't quite there, even in early 2000 in India. I think GPS is now picking up. It's very well established now. But in those days, GPS wasn't a readily available technology in India. So we found that there was a significant unmet need that existed in the transportation business. All these truckers and the owners of truck unions were bleeding a lot of money because of logistic issues. The trucks wouldn't show up on time, or there'd be delays in terms of reaching their destinations or back and forth.
Right.
So there was an opportunity to use the GPS technology to essentially track these trucks from their starting point to destinations and coming back, and ensuring that there is no loss of revenue that happens because of these logistical issues. So we actually identified this need. We actually partnered with an IT technology company there that was giving us access to some of the GPS technologies that they had. And we kind of built this platform, or we're building this platform for this truck union, if you will. And this was during our college days. So we formed the company, all of our friends and everything. We started building this technology platform. But, as you know, in college, we didn't have enough time. There were, exams coming up, majors, so we kind of disbanded. But this was a real product that we were trying to build.
Great. And then how did you make your way into BioXL?
So I was actually recruited straight out of campus in 2006. Nice. So BioXL has a hybrid model. Initially, they started in operations in India, and the headquarters was here in Connecticut. So they were recruiting a team of people in India, and I was part of the first 6 people actually part of the first 7 people that joined. My first ID was employee ID was 0007.
Nice.
So, but yeah, I joined because they recruited me from campus.
I see. And so you've been there, 15 or longer now.
Yes.
And then the 2 companies split up 3 years ago. Is that correct?
2017, yes.
Yeah, neat. And so what was so in BioXL you were doing a similar role but with different products, or was it the same product set?
So I think that the core technology for BioXcel kind of evolved within BioXcel, the parent company. We used to do all of this manually. Like we had an army of people. We used to have at some point, I think about 200 people that were essentially scouring through all this information and trying to make sense in terms of the targets and mechanisms and how they relate to diseases. But in 2010 or 11 time period, we realized that this whole model of adding more and more people, to look at this information or analyze this information wasn't really the model going forward.
Right.
That's where we started looking at automation in terms of basic processes that don't need human intervention. And so artificial intelligence was kind of the first technology we looked at. And we were kind of the pioneers in the space. I don't think anyone was talking about AI in healthcare or drug discovery way back in 2011. But what automation did was obviously good that, you were being comprehensive. We could look at 50 million, publications or literature in a matter of few hours. But then the downside of automation is that you're so comprehensive that you end up accumulating more data than you can consume.
Right.
And that's where we started building these machine learning algorithms to essentially amplify signals which are relevant to the questions that we're asking. And so the whole idea is to use both AI and ML to reduce and keep funneling the data points down to a meaningful set and a set which is amenable for human curation and interpretation and interaction. So that's how we have actually used. So for us, nothing has changed from what we were doing in 2007 or today. The only thing that has changed is that we're using technology as a means to an end, and the end always is a drug candidate that's going to solve the problem for the patient. The technology is the bridge that we have used to be more comprehensive.
Right.
And so the technology component remained the same. The challenge was when you're trying to convince farmers and biotechs for the validation of the platform, they're always seeking very hard, tangible validation elements. And so the only way to show validation is when you actually build your own therapeutic or drug pipeline. And so we use that to build our own pipeline. And that's where we had kind of everything under the parent umbrella. And it made sense for us to restructure the organization and take the technology out separately into InveniAI and take the drugs out separately into the drug entity, which is now BioCell Therapeutics.
So you started out being a data-centric company.
Yes.
And then in order to prove your model, you started developing drugs.
Yes.
And BioXcel still has drugs.
Yes.
But now you're focused on delivering that technology platform to other drug companies.
Yes, because there's only so much we can do as a small company.
Right.
Even BioCell Therapeutics is an example, I think, which is very less talked about in the industry. That's the only company that has drugs coming out of our AI platform that have actually succeeded in phase 3 clinical trials, and hopefully they're going to be a drug on the market by first half of next year. There is no other AI technology that has been able to make that claim. So we're very fortunate.
What's the drug that's coming out? What area is that?
It's called BXCL501. It's essentially drug renovation of an existing drug, where we have converted that into a sublingual thin film, and that's being used to treat acute agitation in schizophrenia and bipolar mania. That's where the phase 3 readout was positive, and it's being pursued in several other indications right now in phase 2 trials.
Well, congratulations! It must be very rewarding. So there's a specific therapeutic end that you've got out of the parent company.
Yes.
And now you can go deliver that message to a lot of other companies. That's cool.
Absolutely, and that's one of the messages that my friends are always, they're always confused as to why I've been with the same company for the last 15 years now, because they have probably jumped 5 companies or so, either horizontal jumps or vertical jumps. But, I always tell them, I said, we've been such a nimble organization. We have evolved from a data-driven or consulting company to a platform-based company to a drug discovery company to creating our own pipeline. So I never felt that I was always with one company. It always felt that we're evolving constantly. But that's a good thing about small organizations is that you're kind of nimble and you have to adapt to the changing ecosystem.
Right. Just to get back to the personal for a little bit, tell me about your experience when you first came to the U.S. you must have been pretty excited. How did being here match up to your expectations? How was that first year or 2 years as you were, getting yourself settled in?
So I was anyways traveling a lot. Since 2007, I was coming to the US. And predominantly all our customers were based out of US.
Right.
So from a work point of view, work-life balance point of view, it was difficult working from India because I was working, night basically, because that's where it was day here.
Right.
To be able to interact with all the folks. So for me, I was already accustomed to the time zone, I was accustomed to the culture, if you will. It was just a matter of being here and being in the market that you're essentially working in. So for me, especially the town that I'm in, is exactly kind of the town where I was born and grew up. So it's right in the foothills of Himalayas in India. So we have all 4 seasons there. We get snow there. It gets as cold as it gets here. So climatically, it was very easy for me to adjust. I was also nostalgic because it reminds me of my hometown where I grew up. So, but other than that, it was exciting. I got more face time with people that I wanted to meet, with my bosses, so I think it was one of the best moves I made.
Great, why don't you just talk a little bit about if you were a young person starting out, maybe in high school or college, thinking about biotech versus tech versus other opportunities, what would you tell them?
I think tech is going to be the disruptive force moving forward. It's already been disruptive, and it's going to be a disruptive force for sure. The good thing is that now, especially when it comes to healthcare, there are so many different disciplines that are kind of integrating together. Be it tech, you come from math background, you come from physics background, computer science, all of that. And when you bring all these disciplines together, it is bound to transform and revolutionize, the way things happen within our industry. And I think healthcare and pharmaceutical is one of the only industries that has been too late and too slow in adapting these technologies. So we're right at the forefront and the cusp. And the beauty of our industry is that, we are really making tangible impact. We are creating medicines for patients that really need them, alleviating their pain. So there's no bigger purpose or gratification than being in the industry that we are. I don't know if you saw or witnessed what we witnessed last year, but the pharmaceutical industry came to the rescue of mankind, really ending the pandemic. I mean, the vaccine has been developed in record time. It has never been established before. And hopefully by, fall this year, at least in the United States, we will have some normalcy, being restored. And that has been possible because of our industry. So I think, you can obviously go and work for big tech giants. Nothing wrong with that. We need them. They are increasing consumerism or, making our lives more efficient. No doubt about that. But when it comes to really impacting society, your community, having the sense of purpose that you're part of that or making an impact, I think there's no greater gratification in that. And that's where we feel that even in building our teams here, because we have brought in a lot of folks that come from such backgrounds who had the option to work for the big tech giants and they chose to work here, is again for this purpose. And that purpose that translates into a culture that you can be the change, or together we can change the world one step at a time. And I think that's to me is one of the key elements why people want to work in our industry now.
Sure, very rewarding. Well, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it, and hopefully we'll see you around town as the world opens up again.
Absolutely. Look forward to it. Thank you very much, Peter.
All right, take care. Thank you.